Welcome to the Vibe Doctor podcast. This is Angie, and today we're going to do an explanation of why we need to dissolve stored emotional pain, and then we're going to do an exercise towards the end on doing this together and dissolving this. So, why do we need, what is stored emotional pain? So, this is an energy within our physical body that we can physically feel as pressure or tingling or burning sensation when that ego voice, that fear voice, those flying monkeys start talking about a topic that causes a disturbance in our emotional body. So this is not just disturbing, creating an emotion. This is emotion that has been stored from the past, that has built up and still resides and is carried around in our physical body, and we can actually feel it as a pressure. It's almost like being punched in the gut when the memory flashes, or someone mentions it, or the voice in our head mentions it. We can feel it. It's like, that just kind of makes me sick to even think about it. You may hear yourself say those words. So you have stored emotional pain, and it can also be more subtle than that. It doesn't have to feel like a punch in the gut or anything. It just feel like a little pressure on your chest or somewhere in your body. Now, I'm going to give two disclaimers here. If you are having physical symptoms, make sure you have been checked out by a doctor and you know that this is not something that is physical in nature and not coming from emotional. What I'm talking about here is stored emotional pain, but sometimes these symptoms can be very similar to those of a physical issue. So if you make sure you have a clear checkup with your doctor and you know that what you're dealing with, okay, there's that disclaimer. Second disclaimer is, if you're dealing with something that is traumatic to you, you know that you might need some support as you go back into this topic. I don't want you to open any doors that you do not feel that you can handle yourself. These are things that are that cause post-traumatic stress, disorder, like something that's really causes a big physical reaction of breaking out in a sweat or a panic, and sometimes your heart can race. Even with the more milder ones, you can get kind of a fear reaction of panic, and that adrenaline starts running. So if you're dealing with those bigger, more serious issues, and you have a lot of stored pain, which your therapist may call trauma, I want you to do this work with your therapist, okay? So that's the second disclaimer. And for everybody else, if you know yourself and you feel comfortable doing this work and dissolving this pain, I want you to then proceed. So why are we doing this? All right, so when you have stored emotional pain in your body, then that makes it easier for that ego, for that fear voice to hold you in a certain way of being, a certain pattern that you're trying to break, a certain thought, way of thinking that you're trying to get past. It holds you, kind of cements you a little bit in that situation, in that reality. So when you're trying to move away from it, you're trying to move forward, you're trying to heal and get better, it kind of has an anchor to you. It's kind of like a cord or a rope that it has tied around you, and all it knows it has to do is just say a few things, and whatever it says gets to you. Meaning it's like, that makes me sick to think about it, or that feels like a punch in the gut even when I just remember it, or that's what I'm talking about, stored emotional pain. It's there. And all it has to do when you're trying to change and you're trying to get better and you're trying to move forward and you're trying to move away from that and you're trying to not let that disturb you or not let that get to you or not let that bother you, that stored emotional pain is like a rope that those flying monkeys can pull on and just suck you right back away from that change and right back into wherever you are at vibrationally or emotionally. So that's the why. Okay. If you listen to I think I named it the timeless now. We talked about living on that horizontal timeline, and we talked about living on the vertical timeline. The vertical is the timeless, the now, the beautiful place of just being and being the observer and being connected back to your true self. And then that horizontal timeline is where most people live with that fear voice, with their ego, and it telling them all kinds of horrible things, and they're having dramas and creating dramas and reliving dramas and being traumatized, and it's just a mess up there, okay? It's a mess on the horizontal timeline. When you have stored emotional pain and you're trying, you've been listening to these spiritual teachers and you really want to be in the now and you want to do that, but you're carrying in that space stored emotional pain, it's very easy for those flying monkeys to just use that cord and jerk you right on out onto the timeline again, onto the not being in the now, but worrying about the past or the future. Or, it's just a mess there. We don't want to live there. We want to live at least in the vertical, being in the now. But then for some of us, if you want to take that one step forward, because in this space of the now is a power, a void, where God exists, of infinite possibilities, unlimited possibilities, where you can become a deliberate creator if you wish. You don't have to. You can hover right there at neutral. It just being. You can just sit right there and just sit on the bench of the playground and watch everybody else, play and get hurt and make a mess or have fun or whatever they're doing. You can just sit there and be the observer in peace and watch it. But if you want to become a deliberate creator, you can say, I'm going to get off this bench and I'm going to go play with something fun, and I'm going to imagine something fun for myself, and I'm going to create something fun for myself to be and to do. That's your choice. You don't have to. But, just letting you know, once you're able to maintain this space for longer and longer periods of time where you're in the vertical and you're not on the timeline, you're in this vertical floating, being, watching, observing, at peace, not disturbed. To exist here, you are in control of your emotional state. You are. To live there, you're in control of your emotional state. If you have stored emotional pain, it's very likely that you're going back and forth. Sometimes you are able to do it, and then along comes the flying monkeys, and they'll say, pull her back to the timeline again. There's still stored emotional pain we need to poke at a little bit. And so you'll get sucked back in, and now you've had a drama, and you're like, I feel like such a failure. What happened? I know about that place, and I was there, and then all of a sudden now I'm not. Likely the reason is you had stored emotional pain that you didn't have dissolved. So why do you want to dissolve that stored emotional pain? Because you reclaim the power to stay in the now, in control of your emotional state, meaning I decide how I feel. Not the fear voice, not the flying monkeys. They don't get to decide how I feel every day. I get to decide how I feel. And if I just want to feel peace all day, I'm going to feel peace all day. If I want to play a little bit and go up higher in that vibration and play with wonderful things in my imagination, I'm going to do that. And that's what I call being a deliberate creator. But you don't have to. Peace is good enough. What I don't want is you below peace. I don't want you in frustration and disappointment and despair and pain and suffering and feeling unloved and feeling unwanted. I don't want you down there. If you're down there in those emotions, you're on the timeline with the flying monkeys and at their mercy, and they get to decide how you feel each day by what they talk to you about and what pain they poke in you. So if there's no pain in you to poke, you have more power it's just like they can say whatever they want to. It doesn't get to me. So maybe you know what still gets to you and what's able to pull you out of your peace, and maybe you don't. But most of you, I have a feeling you probably do know. One other thing before we do the exercise I want to say is, those flying monkeys talking to you are not the problem. I know a lot of you want to shut them down and not listen to them and not let them talk in your head, and you resist them. That's a resistance. When you're not letting them talk in your head, which means you're trying to distract yourself and do all kinds of things, you're resisting, which means you're engaging with them. That's the same as, it's just as bad to resist them. Them talking, what I'm saying is they feed off of that resistance. What we're wanting to do is give them nothing. So when you try to shut them down, I'm not listening to you, and I'm fighting with them and arguing with them and trying to tell them, no, this is how it is, and that's resistance, and that's feeding them energy of your attention. What we're wanting is for you to, them talking is not a problem, and I've said this before. Let them talk. Who cares? It's when they're able to get to you, meaning you have a stored emotional pain that it stirs up, and when you believe those are your thoughts, then it's a problem. When you believe what they're saying, you believe those are your thoughts, and it stirs you up emotionally, then it's a problem. Otherwise, it's not a problem. If you know good and well, that's not you, that's the ego voice. That's not your voice. That's the ego voice talking about this. You're separated. You know that. And you also, when they talk, you're just able to observe and hold your peace, and you don't feel anything. It's like, who cares? Like, go ahead. Say whatever you want to. Like, that doesn't even bother me. It's annoying because, it's like some thing talking in the back of your head, trying to distract you, trying to attack you. It's annoying, but whatever. It's just like a gnat or a fly. Like, it doesn't actually bother you. It's not able to possess you. It's not. So the flying monkeys talking is not a problem. It's when you believe what they say, you believe they are you, and your emotional waters are disturbed. That's when it becomes a problem. So what we're doing in this exercise is helping take care of one part of that. We want to dissolve what still gets to you, that stored emotional pain in your body, so it no longer gets to you. You could care less. They could talk about it all day, whatever. Don't care. I don't believe what they're saying, and I don't feel anything in my body when they talk to me. Okay? So let's get into the exercise. If you have already listened to the first part of this and when you want to skip to the exercise each day to guide you through it, we are starting now at 13:30. I want you to find a quiet place to sit, and I would like for you to have a piece of paper, or you can use your phone, pen and paper or phone, because I'm going to have you write down 3 sentences. And I want you to think about a topic. This could be a topic that, those 3 a.m. topics that come to haunt you in the middle of the night when you're tired and vulnerable. So I want you to think of something you know, or maybe you want to test it out. I don't know if it still gets to me or not. I don't know if there's stored pain around it or not, but I'm willing to find out. So I want you to allow the monkeys, you can see them out in front of you, and say, talk to me about that. Just 3 sentences is all I want. What's your top 3 sentences that you use when you start talking to me about that subject? And I'm going to be quiet and allow you to listen. So you're basically asking them to stir you up. Try it. Give me what you got. Can you stir me up about this topic? It could be about money. It could be about relationships. It could be about love. It could be about anything, like something that still gets to you, your career. And I only want 3 sentences, no more. Because you give these things an inch and they'll take a mile. So I just want a few sentences. When you have those, I want you to write those down. What did they say? What nasty thing, what antagonizing things did they say? They usually will say something horrible, and then they'll turn it on you and say, and you shouldn't feel like that. You should be ashamed of yourself for feeling like that. What a horrible person you are for thinking that. That's them. That's not you. That's them. So write that down. Now I want you to reread those. And I want you to notice if when you reread those over and over, does it get to you? Does it cause a physical reaction in your body? Do you feel it somewhere in your body? Do you feel a pressure in your stomach or in your chest or on your arms? Sometimes I feel mine on my arms, on one side or on the other or on both arms, or in my face, or sometimes behind my head and my neck, and it's subtle, so you have to really focus, or on your temples or on top of your head. Where do you notice, if any, do you notice any physical sensation? Now close your eyes if you do feel a physical sensation. Really focus on where you feel it and what it feels like. And what I want you to repeat is, I love you. I embrace you. I dissolve you. Hold your focus wherever you feel it in your body, and it may move. So you'll have to follow it around until it stops and dissolves. I love you. I embrace you. I dissolve you. And for me, it helps. I see myself actually physically hugging this area of my body where the stored pain is. I see myself lovingly wrapping my arms around this pain and just kind of holding it and embracing it and dissolving it, meaning it just kind of, it shrinks. And sometimes what it does is, as it's shrinking, it moves. It'll move someplace else in the body. And I'll just follow it. And then I'll say it again. I love you. I embrace you. I dissolve you. If you don't like the word embrace, you can say accept. I accept you. We're not fighting this thing. We're dissolving this thing. We're acknowledging its presence. And we're dissolving it. But I like embrace because it gives me the visual of actually hugging it and nurturing it and healing it and dissolving it. And I was working on one last night, and I had to chase it all around my body. And just, I love you. I embrace you. I dissolve you. I love you. I embrace you. I dissolve you. And eventually, when it gets very close, it'll change from a pressure to kind of a burning sensation. And then it's gone. And then it no longer exists. And then that's it. That's the end of your practice for today. Okay? That's the end of your work. And then tomorrow, I want you to take those same 3 sentences and repeat them. And then notice your body do it. Is there any sensations? Does that get to me at all? And you'll be like, oh, I still feel a little bit here when I hear those words, or maybe you're like, yeah, I didn't feel anything. I really didn't. Like, it didn't touch me at all. You were desensitizing yourself to words that used to stir up a pain in you. And now it's like you've already dissolved it and it's gone. You addressed it and it's over. So then, if those 3 sentences that you wrote down the day before don't do it for you, it's like that didn't, stimulate anything. Go to the next 3. Say, what else do you have? Let the monkeys talk to you again. Like, that didn't even bother me. What else do you have? You're wanting to see. You want them to pull out all the stops. You want them to see if they can come up with something, some thought, or something that is like a knife, like it really gets to you. So ask them for another three statements. And then if you feel something, just keep repeating and keep working on it. Just do 3 sentences a day until it's done. And then you'll be like, that topic's over. Like, there is no more stored emotional pain in me around that subject. And then what happens is, when something happens outside of you, or when the monkeys start talking about it, or when something reminds you of it, you don't have the physical reaction anymore. Your emotions aren't disturbed about it anymore. And you then have more power to choose. Okay, I can keep thinking this thought that's, ridiculous anyway. Or now I can change it because I have the power to change it. Before, when I had stored emotional pain, I didn't have the power to change it. But now that I've loved it, embraced it, and dissolved it, I now get to choose. What do I want? Do I want to think this negative thought about myself or about another person or about a situation? Or do I want to change it now? Do I want to go into the void? Do I want to go into the place of presence and to the vertical timeless now, and then climb the emotional ladder and think some amazing, wonderful things? Then do that. That is it for today. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. If you're following on Spotify or iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, and there's one other place I can't think of what it is, or YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.